Alright, hey guys, Starshaped here doing my second replay commentary. I know I said I'd do one every week at least. This is a bit late, but if we squint our eyes it looks almost like it's been a week. So I'm going to do a game here which hasn't really been shown or broadcast before because it's a private game from the WC3 arena ladder between myself and Happy, the Russian undead player. I don't have a lot of time to play these days, so but every now and then I'll jump on and play a few games. So this is probably about a month ago. I played a couple of games and I ran into Happy. And I thought it'd be an interesting game to show because, for one, it'll kind of display my mass archer huntress style, especially the late game archers and huntresses, which almost nobody does, but I think it's very, very powerful. And it'll also show kind of how crucial it is, or how much of an effect deception and non-meta play can have on a game, which we will see here. It's a very interesting game for many reasons. So I'll just start the game here, speed up a bit. So obviously I'm here, the Night Elf in blue, and Happy is the undead in green. And we're both playing here on Nomad Isles, which is a very, very good elf map in general, mostly because of this tavern creep here, which is very easy to creep with Ancient War. There's not a lot you can do as undead, unless you maybe send a really fast ghoul, but again, it's a bit of a gamble since it's a 3-player map, so if you send a fast ghoul you might not get there, you might get to a creep camp instead, and you've wasted a lot of resources. But in general, it's a very easy to creep with Ancient War, get a good item, get access to the mercenary camp, and you're well on your way to level 3. So excellent map for Warden, for example. But I'm going for the Keeper of the Grove. I'm not building an Ancient War here at all. I'm just going for a very, very, for me, normal Huntress build with the Keeper of the Grove. I really like using the Keeper against Undead, as a lot of you might have seen or already know. Which isn't a hero that anybody else really uses against Undead. We've seen Sonic do it a couple of times. But other than that, he's not really used a whole lot. Not as a first hero, not as a second hero, and definitely not as a third hero. But I think he's a very strong hero against Undead. The main reason being that Undead is the only race that can't counter Entangling Roots until they have Destroyers, more or less. So if you have Keeper of the Grove, as soon as there are Destroyers out, he's completely useless. Like he's a 5-foot archer, pretty much. But the fact that they need Destroyers... I'm just going to pause the game here while I finish this thought. The fact that they need Destroyers to counter this hero, it secures the game for you as a Night Elf in a lot of ways, because it kind of, if you have a mental checklist of things the undead might be doing in this given game, you can check off almost everything because you know they're going to want to get Destroyers. If this was, for example, a Priestess of the Moon, or if it was a Demon Hunter and I was doing the same Hunter strategy, I would have to fear so many more things, because they might be staying at tier 1 and going double Crypt Fiends. They might be doing a tier 2 all-in with wagons, and so on and so forth. But the Keeper of the Grove is amazing against anything that doesn't involve Dispel. So you can kind of check off all of these kind of scary situations that you might find yourself in with any other hero. But with the Keeper of the Grove, you're very comfortable knowing that they're probably just going to go really fast tier 3. And you can play towards that. You can play assuming that you're going to run into tier 3, a quick tier 3 for Destroyers. But this is the first thing that's very interesting about this game. Is Happy is creeping the mercenary camp with Death Knight and ghouls, which for me is a gold mine. This is amazing. I have a Keeper of the Grove, I'm doing a hero rush, and my opponent is creeping with ghouls a very big camp. But from Happy's perspective, he's playing on Nomad Isles, he's playing as Night Elf. He probably has no idea that I like to play Keeper of the Grove, so in his mind, he's counter-playing the Ancient War creeping. He thinks that, okay, it's Night Elf on Nomad Isles, it's going to be Ancient War creeping, so instead of trying to do a futile harass, I will just kind of consolidate this difficult situation by creeping myself. Maybe I'll get level 2 or 3 Death Knight and a good item myself, and that'll help me in the long run, rather than trying to rush. So he's kind of playing against the meta, and I'm playing something completely different than the meta. And this is one of the things I want to show, is just how big of an impact this could have. I almost missed it, but look at this. Like, with Entangling Roots, there's not a whole lot Happy can do here. The creeps will kill the one getting entangled, and I'll slowly try to entangle more. He almost gets a nice round here. Yeah, I don't have a wisp nearby. Usually you want to keep a wisp nearby to be able to dispel skeletons in case he gets surrounded, or in case you can dispel 4 at once. That's a very nice thing to do. But Happy's kind of... his whole game plan, early game plan, has been thrown off entirely. He's lost 2 ghouls, he's all out of mana. His tech is delayed, it's just now started. And behind this, I'm going for a very standard Ancient of War creeping, double Ancient of War Huntress build. But I've also put down this expansion. And I've done this very, very early. I've done it before I've even started making any units. And this is just a reaction to this beautiful early game for me. I feel very, very comfortable throwing down the expansion right now. This is something I'm going to do anyway. Usually after maybe 2, 3, 4 Huntresses. But in this situation, I reacted to the fact that Happy just kind of got wrecked here. And lost so much. So I can just immediately put down a tree and delay my Huntresses a bit. At this point, like I said, the Undead needs tier 3 to deal with Entangle, really. Or go Mass Gargoyles, where you can't really entangle air units. So all I'm really doing with my Keeper's Grove at this point is try to keep Happy back, try to be annoying. He's still going aggressively on the creeping here. Coils that ghoul nicely, loses 1. And he loses the creep, actually. So I got the creep kill here, which is very huge. A lot of luck involved in that. It's very difficult to get last hits with the Keeper because he has such a low damage output and very low attack rate. Also try to get some skeleton kills, just being annoying. It's all you want to do when you're going Keeper against Undead, is be as annoying as possible while you get your units set up and your expansion. And I'm even teching very early as well. After only starting 2 Huntresses, I'm doing a tech. So all this looks kind of greedy, but it's almost all of it is a reaction to how well this early game has gone and how much I've accomplished so far. But we do see, unbeknownst to me, Happy is actually going Gargoyles. And Gargoyles is kind of... Just pause the game and think about it. Like, Gargoyles is a very, very intuitive counter to Keeper Huntress. Like, if your opponent's going Keeper Huntresses, then you're thinking, okay, what do I have that beats Huntresses? And at tier 2 you have a flying piercing damage unit, so it's a very natural counter. But one that I don't think is that good. I don't think it's the best counter to mass hunts, even though it might seem like one. But more importantly is the fact that I have no idea Happy would play Gargoyles, because I know Happy, even if he doesn't know me in this game. So I'm aware that he usually always just does the same thing over and over and over again and just plays perfectly. So I'm definitely expecting just Fiends. I'm not expecting Gargoyles at all. I didn't think he would ever play Gargoyles even against Keeper Hunts. And I could easily scout for it. If I wasn't lazy, I could just send a Wisp, I could scan, I could do anything just to make sure what your opponent's doing. But I'm basing the fact that it's Happy, I'm basing my decision making on the fact that he won't do anything other than just play Fiends like he always does. I'll be kind of, I'll vary the Fog of War on and off. But from my perspective, I mean, Happy's doing as well as he can, considering how bad the early game has been. He's being annoying, stealing creeps, slowing down my expansion. There's a lot of Lightning Shield to think about. It's a bit of a hectic situation. Thankfully, there are no ghouls to help him. Imagine if he didn't lose the ghouls here. If he didn't lose the ghouls here, he could definitely put on a lot of pressure right now with ghouls. But there's no pressure, really. And at this point, I'm still just making Huntresses, because I'm expecting Fiends. I'm not making any Ancient Protectors, because I'm not expecting Gargoyles. I'm just going to just poke around, check around, see what he's doing. From Happy's perspective, he's doing what you would usually do as an Undead Gargoyle player, is to just kind of sit back. Keep your ghouls safe, hide behind your Halls of the Dead, and start making Gargoyles for harassment purposes. But he's also sneaking around with some of his units in 0 to try and find some experience, get level 3. Once you get level 3, that's like the key level for the Death Knight. You can one-shot Wisps, you can attack an Archer once and coil it to kill it. There's a lot of nice things you can do with a level 3 Death Knight that you can't do with a level 2 Death Knight. So risky creeping, evasive creeping, very, very smart thing to do. A bit risky against a Keeper, you might get surrounded, you might get a lot of units killed to entangle roots, but here's when I first see that the Gargoyles are coming. And he actually Happy buys a staff, which is nice. He didn't waste a town portal; just gets a staff. It looks like a town portal because he uses it on the Halls of the Dead, but it's just a staff, and it forces me back. This Halls of the Dead, I mean, it has quite good DPS actually, even though the damage isn't so good. It's quite fast and obviously piercing damage does extra damage to the Huntresses. But upon seeing the gargoyles, I mean, immediately I throw down 2 Ancient Protectors, one for each base. This is just anti-harassment for the low number of gargoyles that are coming out right now. Once they get up to like 12 or more gargoyles, this doesn't really do anything. They're just going to one-shot your wisps anyway. But early on, this is very nice. It also helps against some kind of ghoul gargoyle all-in that might follow. And I start producing archers immediately, because that's one of the best things about this strategy, the Keeper Hunter strategy, is how flexible it is. Even though I wasn't prepared for the gargoyles at all, as soon as I saw them, I have the Hunter Cell, so I can make Ancient Protectors. I have 2 Ancients of War, which I'm using to build Huntresses, but I can just as easily switch over to make Archers, which I'm doing now. And Archers are very, very strong against gargoyles. And also the fact that Huntresses and Archers share upgrades, so if I upgrade the attack and armor on Archers, I also upgrade them on the Huntresses, which is vital to this strategy since I'm going for only Huntresses and Archers. So I want to maximize the value of my upgrades. Get a panda here. Usually, I don't always get a panda. Even against gargoyles, I don't always get it. But in general, panda is very good against gargoyles. Against like a normal fiend build, I'd probably get something like a demon hunter second, or an alchemist, or a priestess of the moon. Sometimes a panda, but not always a panda, because with the panda you pretty much need level 3 for him to be useful. Whereas with demon hunter and alchemist and priest of the moon, they're both just great out of the altar. So this hero requires some creeping, but against passive gargoyle style you do have a lot of room to creep, so the panda makes sense. You don't want to be stuck with a bad second hero just because you're scared you won't be able to creep, because I will be able to creep. So Happy is going tier 3. He's keeping tabs on me for sure with his gargoyles. He's being very attentive, trying not to lose any, just being annoying as I'm running around outside his base. He's well aware of the fact that I have an expansion. He knows now that I have a panda. I'm obviously tier 2. But he's not entirely sure of what I'm following up with. Logically, I mean, most people at this point would probably get lures. But I'm not going to get lures, like I said. I'm going to go for only Archers and Huntresses. I'm getting a 3rd Ancient War just to maximize my macro abilities later on, because I want to be able to bank. I have my expansion, I'm at 50 food, I'm getting my 3rd production building, and I want to bank because Happy's going gargoyles, and whenever you play against gargoyles, almost all the time, it's going to be a very late game oriented style. It's going to be the undead sitting below upkeep all game and just harassing and harassing and harassing. And then once their gold mine runs out, that's when they break upkeep and they go to like 90 food, 100 food with like gargoyles and worms and destroyers and abominations. So I'm assuming that Happy's going to do this. I'm assuming that Happy will not be overly aggressive, which allows me to bank, because I expect him to bank. And this is something that later in the game we'll see is actually quite efficient. Even if I have an expansion, the fact that the undead stays below upkeep all game really does kind of equalize the army size in the late game. Which is discouraging as an Night Elf player, because you feel like there's not a lot you can do about it. You can't really attack into the fortress that is the undead base. So you just kind of have to accept the fact that they're going to bank all game. And this is the best you can do with gargoyles. You creep with your hero and ghouls, and you harass with gargoyles. You search for wisps. Happy does a good job of that, killing all my wisps. So I go up to about 1,000 gold, 1,500 gold, and that's when I start breaking. Because I could bank more, but the longer I bank, the riskier it gets in case I get attacked, because in a 50 food against 50 food battle I will lose. So the longer I bank, the riskier it gets. And also, if I have a big army, I can solidify my map control and I can creep my panda more easily. So if I start creeping this shop and Happy shows up, I can still creep and fight Happy because I have a huge army. Whereas if I was 50 foot at this point still, I would be afraid of any engagement while I'm creeping. Also get the Force of Nature over the Thorns aura, which just pause here. It's a difficult choice to make because with Thorns aura you have the ability to go Hippogriffs. Hippogriffs are already very strong against gargoyles, but if you add in the Thorns aura, then they just absolutely destroy them. So that's one good reason you might want to go for the Thorns aura. But I'm not going for Hippogriffs. Like I said, archers are going to be my main anti-air. And I know that usually gargoyle players will not get destroyers. It's pretty common for them to just get gargoyles and worms, ghouls, meat wagons, abominations, like those types of units. Not very often do we see destroyers. So the treants are good for creeping, and they're okay meat shields in a late game situation. Like if you can get 6 to 9 of those out in the field with no dispel, especially with Nature's Blessing, because Nature's Blessing adds armor also to the treants. So that was my reasoning for going treants. Especially if the creeps have a lot of piercing damage, it's nice to have the Force of Nature. But Happy is being very, very aggressive here. He's still below upkeep, but he's charging in here. I have to Town Portal. I have a very, very solid defense here though. 2 Moonwells, a 3rd run going up, Ancient War, Ancient Protector, and I'm Town Portaling in. There's no way he can fight here, but he has no intention to either. He's going to utilize his aura and the fact that he has air units, just hit and run. Force me to Town Portal, then run away. Force me to Town Portal, run away. Just try to maximize the efficiency here of resources lost. Where at this point he hasn't really lost any, but I have to Town Portal and I have to get a new Town Portal and so on. So being very, very annoyingly aggressive is very strong with this gargoyle style. Just being in your opponent's face as much as possible, and he's microing them very well as well, because they sometimes go down to red HP, but they almost never die. Slowly trying to whittle down some of my units even, and this is a very good combination. Like I said, with the level 3 or 4 Death Knight, we have level 2 Coil. If he just gets a couple of hits in on an archer with the gargoyles, he can run in and coil the archer down. So he's looking to create those situations. Oh, nice dodge. Looking to create those situations where he can just snipe archers. But I'm doing a fairly good job of hiding archers that he focuses, and I also have a staff, which I don't always get a staff. For some reason, I forget about this item. I don't really use it that much. It is a very, very strong item. You should always get one, but for some reason, I almost never do. But this game, I did. So now we see the Lich out with the orb. This is kind of the turning point for Undead. This is when Undead becomes very, very scary. And this hero combo, along with Statue, is very, very annoying to deal with. There can be a lot of Coil Nova hit and runs in the future. But still, Happy is below upkeep. Like I said, that's not going to change anytime soon. There's no reason to go above upkeep, because he can't take a straight fight at this point, and he is outnumbered in mines, so he has to stay below. Meanwhile, I'm almost 80 food, and I'm just creeping. I don't really like this map for the reason that these creeps are very, very, very luck-based. Like, I got the Furbolgs here, which, I mean, that's just useless. But you can also get, like, a scroll of restoration, which is amazing. Like, that's a game-breaking item. But I got the useless Furbolgs, which is kind of sucky. So Happy is continuing with this annoying kind of push style, killing wisps, but being very, very careful, not losing too much. But lost a gargoyle, lost a ghoul. So I'd say I came out ahead there, but again, he's just trying to keep tabs on me being annoying, all the while banking up and waiting for his gold mine to run closer to the end. The interesting thing about this game, from Happy's perspective, is that he's not really getting upgrades. A lot of gargoyle undeads, like undeads who play gargoyles a lot, they'll value upgrades so much. He's getting his first one now, 14 minutes into the game, and it's the ghoul upgrade, which means it's probably going to go for abominations rather than keep going with the air. I forced a Town Portal here, which is very, 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 very nice. If you can ever force an undead to Town Portal, that's a job well done. So I kind of came in from both sides here. pinched him in and he has to town portal out. And he had a town portal, which is very nice. Before he didn't have one. I got the Priest of the Moon third for the simple reason that, like, if I'm at tier 3, I have 2 heroes, I have an 80 food army, which is all ranged. Like, what hero can I add as my third hero with the most impact? It's definitely the Priest of the Moon. I'm adding so much extra damage to almost every unit I have. The only one that doesn't get it is the Panda. So if we're looking at like level 1 impact, the Priestess of the Moon is by far the best hero I can pick here, I think. Other viable options would be Demon Hunter just for the mana burn. I could also potentially get Naga to try and slow them down if they hit and run you. Maybe a Tinker to create some blockage. But I really like the Priestess here in this situation. And I'm just going to keep on creeping. And you'll notice that... Oh yeah, there's some pausing here. But you'll notice that even though Happy is 50 and I'm 80, I'm still being very passive. I'm just creeping because I've played more than enough games to know that even with a 100 food army, you can't attack an undead. You can never attack an undead in their base. That's the biggest mistake you can make, is getting overconfident and suiciding into their main. So I'm very, very careful. Despite how huge my army is, despite I could go 100, I could do a lot of things right now, but I'm not going to. Mainly because I still have the advantage in the game. There's no reason for me to be aggressive, really, if we think about it, because I have better economy, a bigger army, and I can still creep the map. And I'm getting more expansions. So I can definitely play a defensive, passive game here if I just have the patience. And that's the key when playing against gargoyles, is you just have to have patience. Here's the key level for the Priestess, level 2 Aura. Adds so much damage. You wouldn't believe it. Happy's finally broken now, though. He has 2 slaughterhouses. Well, the second one coming. Getting a Dreadlord third, which is an interesting choice. It makes a lot of sense. It has good synergy with Coil Nova. So Coil Nova Carrion against a lot of archers and huntresses. Could also potentially get the Vampiric Aura in case there are Hippogriffs. And in case there is Thorn's Aura. So it's a nice little counter to pretty much everything I could potentially do. It's a very safe choice as a third hero. I like it a lot. And here are the Abominations. Getting more attack upgrades. So 0-0 on the Gargoyles. Soon to be 2-0 on the Ghouls and Abominations. And Owl Scout. Keeping tabs on Happy. I'd say Owl Scout is probably one of the most broken spells in the game. It's just that we never see it because it's almost never relevant. You're almost never going to have a priestess where you pick the owl, because most of the time you want to have Searing Arrow because you're doing some kind of all-in with huntresses. But with a third hero like this, if I can choose between adding 10 extra damage per hit from the priestess when I'm already adding so much with just the aura, like that's a drop in the ocean. But if you compare it with the level 1 Owl Scout, which is pretty much map hack, then obviously this is a much better choice for a late game situation. Especially if you get to level 2 Owl, that's when it's really ridiculous. Like the sight range for the Owl on level 2 and how long it lasts is just, it basically is map hack at that point. Like you can have 2, 3, 4 owls out at the same time. They don't cost that much and you just always see everything that's coming. I also haven't really mentioned, but I have really good upgrades. I have 2-1 upgrades for my archers and my huntresses. I'm probably getting even more. Oh, not yet actually. I will, eventually. I also have the range on the archers, which is adding range, I believe it's 100 range or 200 range. And I've also gotten the moon glaive on my huntresses. So the reason I enjoy this style of going pure huntress and archer is the fact that they aren't really tier 1 units. Like a lot of people will say, oh, this is kind of abusive, you're just amassing tier 1 units. It's not really that skill intensive, you're just making a lot of low level units and you're attack moving into the opponent. But I'd argue that these aren't really tier 1 units anymore because both of these units have upgrades at tier 2 and tier 3 that make them more and more viable. So you get the range at tier 2 for archers. You get the sentinel for the huntresses, which I haven't gotten this game because I've been low on wood due to the gargoyle harass, but you can get the sentinels, which is very, very strong. And then at tier 3 you get the moon glaives and you get the bronxmanship. So you're kind of turning these tier 1 units into tier 2 and tier 3 units, I would say. So at this point, when I have marksmanship and moon glaives and good upgrades and level 2 aura, these are no longer just mere tier 1 units. These are very, very beefy, strong late game army, I would argue at least. And one of the best reasons is also you don't have to add anything else once you reach tier 2 and tier 3. Like, you don't have to add more production buildings, except maybe a third ancient war, which also works as a defensive structure. So you don't have to worry about getting your lures cancelled, you don't have to spend wood on lures and expensive dryads and getting more upgrades. You don't have to get different types of upgrades. It's a very, very efficient army, and if you get an expansion early the way I did, like, you can really produce so much in terms of army because of how efficient everything else is. So you have the 2 gold mines, you don't have to get any more tech structures, they share all the upgrades, and all of the late game upgrades are very cheap. So definitely this is an army that's a force to be reckoned with. Especially with the aura here at level 2, adding +5 to each archer and +4 to the huntresses, which is actually more than +4 because of the bouncing glaive, so it's +6 for the huntresses, since the glaive is half damage. Actually even more because of the bouncing glaive, so it's 3 bounces instead of 2, so you get the point. It's a lot of damage here. And here's where Happy is being annoying, and this is the biggest downside to this strategy of amassing archers and huntresses, is that you can't really deal with just these heroes running out and sniping your stuff. So a coil here, a Nova there, a carrion swarm there, and then backing off, especially with a destroyer to remove any entangle. So potentially, in theory, Happy could do this all day, just all day running around trading mana for resources and experience. And at that point, you really don't want to allow that to happen. So at this point, you really have to be more aggressive. Happy already has the high level heroes, he has good items, pretty decent upgrades as well. So it really is time to try and take a fight for me. But like I said before with the upkeep thing, like, notice how big Happy's army is. He's only been on 1 base this entire game. He's pretty much equal my army. So he was patient despite my expansion. He didn't panic, he didn't overreact. He was patient and just stayed under upkeep, and this way he pretty much matches my army food supply wise, and it's a higher tech army. So he has tier 3 units in there, whereas I don't. Gonna speed up a bit.
Our warriors have engaged the enemy.
So here's what could be a big fight. Happy runs in, but again, this position is still very, very strong with the moon wolves and the trees whacking and the ancient protector helping. So Happy doesn't want to take a fight there. Just running around, being annoying. Oh, I actually microed for once. I actually saved a huntress there with staff. Happy goes for my newly built expansion. This is this is clever, but very annoying play. And this is what it's all about, is undead. You just want to run around and be annoying and just kill an expansion, town portal out, and just drag out the game as long as you can until your gold mine is out. So at this point we really are pretty much matched. I mean, I'm going above. I went above upkeep when he went into my base here because I thought it might have been his final stand. So I'm going to 100 now. I've got 2-2 upgrades. I will start 3-2 very soon. And I'm stacking up these items. Look how many heal scrolls I have to prevent Coil Nova Carrion from destroying me. I have invulnerability potions. Wand of the Wind is nice. A lot of summons, unfortunately. So here's another potentially game-ending fight, but Happy, being very, very patient, doesn't want to take a bad fight. And backs off. Because, I mean, what's the point? What's the point of fighting here when you could be fighting anywhere else? Like, this is the best possible position for me to fight in. You can kind of see these owl scouts being used. I don't really use them that well, but I could use them better, but especially if I get level 2 owls. I don't think it happens this game, but those level 2 owls are just amazing. Here's my 3-2 upgrade on the way, so a 3rd attack upgrade. And I definitely don't want to take a fight before it's finished. But I mean, here it is. Here's the 100 food Night Elf army. And you would be surprised at how much DPS this actually is. Like, especially these archers. Whatever these archers attack, they're just gonna melt like butter.
Our warriors have
And I think a lot of people underestimate just how strong these archers and huntresses are at this point in the game, with all these upgrades and this aura and so forth. So here's potentially a big battle. Already a pretty poor engagement on me. I kind of used Drunken Haze on the gargoyles, and then I Breath of Fired the abominations, so I kind of missed quite badly. And my army is coming in kind of piecemeal, one at a time here in a line. Whereas his already has a nice concave going. So this is a pretty nice battle to take. We see Coil Nova, we see Carrion Swarm, already used the heal scroll. But look at these archers, man. Even against these abominations, they're just melting so fast. Look at this. It's incredibly strong DPS wise, this army. And now I do have the third attack upgrade, so +5 on huntresses, +5 on the archers. The +5 is better, like I said, because of the bouncing glaive, so it's even more than 5. I mean, these archers are doing a minimum of like 27 damage, up to 35, and that's insane for a 2 supply unit with 700 range. I mean, look how fast this Lich almost dies. I mean, Happy has amazing macro, so he saves his Lich.
Our warriors have engaged the enemy.
I actually staffed another Huntress. But yeah, Happy is being as smart as possible, hit and running, trying to snipe off units before he takes the final battle. The best thing for him is if he can take a fight by his base, if he can get cold tower support and shop support. So I'm about 20 supply up. But this is still kind of an awkward position, and this is like a deciding factor in the game. Like, okay, from my perspective, should I attack here? I'm walking my main to this expansion, so I will have 2 bases. I'm 100 food, so I can't really add any more units. I have almost fully upgraded my army. I have still good items, 2 heal scrolls. I have a town portal I can always get out. So should I attack here, or should I just kind of wait them out? And eventually against gargoyles, I usually get impatient. I try not to be, but eventually I always just kind of suicide myself into a gargoyle army, so that's what I eventually decide to do here. Put it down to half speed. So Happy's doing the smart thing. He's forcing my army into this line formation, just like before over here. Making sure not to engage in a concave. Being as annoying as possible, using these Novas and Carrions, hitting back and forth. I'm using some staff to try and counteract this, but eventually I lose my patience and I go in. Let's just go for it. So 100 food against 80 food with undead base support. Level 5 Death Knight, level 3 Lich, both with heal scroll and 1 protection scroll, invulnerability. A lot of good items basically on Happy. I have good items as well. Still those 2 heal scrolls. Never really used a lot of my summons. So here we go. I'm putting at half XP just so we can see the damage output on all these archers. Like, look how the undead army is just melting. I'm not even focus firing. Like, I'm not very good at microing. A lot of people know that. So most of this is just attack move. But look at, like, all these units are just getting low so fast. Happy can't really keep up. And I'm not really losing that much. At most I'm losing some of these huntresses, and they're not really that important. The most important units are these archers right now because they're doing so much damage. Dreadlord just dies instantly. Eventually I start focusing the Death Knight, and he just goes down to red so quickly. Uses heal scroll by the Lich, passes the Motivated Potion, saves his Death Knight, so very, very well microed here by Happy to keep this Death Knight alive, but it's kind of a futile effort at this point. There's so much damage coming in from everywhere here. And again, I didn't really lose a lot this game. Like, Happy's down to 50 soon. I haven't lost a whole lot, and the things I do lose are very, very easy to replace. They're just cheap tier 1 units. So at this point, I lose even more patience, and I just right-click the Death Knight, and I go everything I have. I just right-click the Death Knight, and eventually he dies. I staff out my panda, and GG. So that's the game. That's the Nomad Isles, Keeper of the Grove, Mass Hunts, Mass Archers, Panda second, Priest of the Moon third, against Happy's Gargoyles. So like the main thing I would take away from this, the reason this game went so well, it's mostly the early game. Happy played against the meta, I played non-meta strategies, and it worked out really well for me. I have played Happy before when I've laddered, I think once before, where I lost quite badly. I think it was Last Refuge, where I played the same keeper style, but he was playing just standard fiends, ghouls into fiends, and he was very, very, very efficient all game. Didn't really lose anything early on, and that way I lost quite badly in the late game. But with the Keeper of the Grove, if you can get a good early game, you almost always win, I would say. If you can just secure that good early game with the Entangle and the expansion, you set yourself up for a very, very good late game. And yeah, so look at the gold lost to upkeep. Very good banking by Happy, being very patient. I had very good protect percentages. Like I said, all the upgrades make my army more of a tier 3 army than a tier 1 army. And yeah, so that's pure Archer Huntress against Undead. If you're watching this, if you want to try this out, I highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun. It's very, very easy to play. It doesn't really require that much. Like whenever I play Night Elf against Undead, I hate playing standard because when I have like a lot of archers early on, I lose them all the time just to ghouls right-clicking me. I lose wisps and I lose archers and I just lose the game in 5 minutes. But when I play this style, I'm a lot more confident. The huntresses are beefy. You don't really lose them the same way you lose archers. You can wall off your main from the Death Knight with a huntress build, so you don't lose wisps as much. And just overall, I'm a lot more comfortable playing with huntresses and especially a keeper against Undead. But it is worth noting, like, so in this situation, Happy played against the normal meta and he lost out on it. But imagine if I met Happy again. If I meet him again on the same map and he knows, oh, this guy, he goes Keeper of the Grove and he goes Huntresses all the time. So instead of trying to creep the mercenary camp, I'm just going to go a super fast gargoyle tech. I'll tech before my heroes even out. Something like that, just some kind of extreme reaction to how I play. Then he might win the game very easily based on what I'm playing. So he kind of counters me in that situation. And so the ideal situation as a Night Elf player, or as me, would be to not just play, Keeper of the Hunts every game, but also to play some standard, just to make sure my opponent doesn't know exactly what I'm going to do. But I'm quite bad at that. A lot of the time, people will blind counter me on ladder. They'll see my name and they'll think, okay, it's going to be Keeper Hunts or Beastmaster Hunts, some kind of Hunts build, and then they'll play against it. Maybe they'll do a Fiend build. Maybe they'll do like a fast tech to Wyverns, stuff like that. So if you're going to play a different style, my best advice is to also play standard every now and then, at least, just to make sure your opponents can't put you in a box and blind counter you. So I hope you guys enjoyed this commentary. This is my second commentary in my new series that I'm trying to put out at least once a week. So please tell me what you thought. If you have any comments or criticisms, or any requests for games you'd like to see cast and analyzed, and so on and so forth. So goodbye for now. I hope you enjoyed.